Welcome to the Gnosis podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration, life stories, tarot card readings, and spoken word poetry. I'm your host, Fiona Gertiza, or Chief. And always remember to embrace the world inside you. All right, welcome back to the Gnosis podcast. I hope you're having a fine week, Gnostics. Right, so now that we've gotten that brief introduction out of the way from last episode, and now that you know what to expect from this podcast, I thought I'd iron out some details and talk more about the name of this podcast, Gnosis. I'm sure a lot of you might be curious about it. Gnosis. What a mouthful of a name, right? It's unique. I gotta hand it to myself. It's definitely the type of username that I'm sure would be available when I was setting up my social media accounts. One thing that I definitely take pride in is how I make sure everything I touch carries my fingerprint, leaves an indelible mark. I'm sure a lot of us are the same. We all aspire to walk the earth and make sure we leave a lasting impact on the people around us. After all, we don't really know how much time we have left. I know that's probably a little morbid way to think of life, as if your time is running out, but that's the way I choose to live day in and day out. But the point is, we all want to make our lives extra special. And this means giving our all, no matter how big or small the task is right in front of us. That's the mindset I had during the inception of Gnosis. I know I already said this last time, but less than a year ago, I didn't even know how to read tarot. I didn't even know that it existed because I was a naturalist and a skeptic. You know what I'm saying? I was scornful of astrology and mysticism and avoided it like the plague. I believed in hard facts and evidence, not in people who looked into a crystal ball. But I guess it all changed after 2022, which is what I call my banner year of loss and bereavement. I'm always talking about this, that I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but it bears repeating. 2022 was the year when my best friend, cousin, and aunt died. I quit 2 jobs and I ended a relationship. All of these events happened in rapid fire succession within the span of 5 months, so it was a lot to take in. And it's still a lot to take in if I'm being completely honest. Somewhere along the way after all of that transpired, I found myself at a crossroads and wanted answers to the meaning of mortality and why I lost everything I held dear. That's when I stumbled across some people offering free tarot readings on Reddit and decided to give it a shot. I had nothing to lose, so why not, right? And I was surprised at how much tarot opened my eyes to completely new points of view, and it helped me come to terms with the things I couldn't accept. It gave me closure. Eventually, I got deeper into the craft as I started to learn tarot, and I decided I could help people who might have been through the same anguish and despair that I had been through. Maybe I could give other people hope. Early this year in March, my grandmother died. She was the last remaining sister of my direct maternal grandmother. When my grandmother died early this year, I just felt so numb. I mean, I was still recovering and getting my bearings from all of the deaths that had happened in the previous year. It was around this time when I decided to offer donation-based tarot readings for her memory. So I put together what scant amount of earnings that I'd get for her funeral expenses. I started small, but it did turn out to be pretty successful, and my querents wanted more of it and started referring me to their friends. It kind of snowballed from there, and I decided to pursue this as a passive income stream. Now, at this point, it's really something I'd want to dedicate my life to. Fool's Gnosis was born out of my desire to help people surrender to the whispers of transformation and embark on a journey of self-discovery with the tarot cards. So now that we know the backstory, let me tell you a little bit more about the name behind this podcast. The Fool reflects card number 0 in every tarot deck, and it's also the first card of the major arcana, or the first 22 cards in a deck. Alright, so I know that's a lot to take in, so let's slow it down a bit. In the Rider-Waite tarot deck, which is the one that I primarily use for readings, the Fool card depicts a young man standing on the edge of a cliff, right? So for the uninitiated, I'm going to try to paint a picture here so you can really imagine what the Fool card looks like. So this young man, he looks like he's transfixed by the sky above him and is apparently unaware that he's about to drop off of the cliff. This young man is carrying a small bag of possessions, which is tied to the end of a stick, which is over his shoulder. And this bag is a surprisingly small pouch that's enough to fit a few pennies and a flashlight and maybe a pen and just the bare necessities to survive. There's also a white rose in his other hand, which some people interpret as a symbol of purity and innocence. Finally, there's a dog at his feet, which looks like it's barking and warning the Fool of the dangers that await him in the murky depths. For me, this image reflects the mindset of querents before the start of every reading. So basically, they have this desire for guidance and a yearning for fresh perspectives, of not being afraid to fall into the unknown. I really like how it acknowledges that true mastery requires a humble and open-minded approach. That we all start as fools before we can become the masters of our own lives. Let's move on to Gnosis. Now, I'm not a language expert by any means, but to simplify it a little bit, Gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge or insight. In a broader sense, Gnosticism was a system of ideas and beliefs that took shape in 1st century AD among some Jewish and early Christian sects. So this philosophical and religious movement postulated that salvation takes place when people achieve a deep, profound understanding of the godliness within themselves, right? Heavy stuff, but profound stuff. One idea that resonated with me was how Gnostics, or the people who subscribe to the beliefs of Gnosticism, which, side note, is what I call the community of people who support Fool's Gnosis, so shout out to you. So Gnostics believed that people possess a divine spark, or a radiant fragment that fell from the sky and into their bodies. And to be honest with you, I'm so drunk on the concept of us being caretakers of this divine essence, right? And how self-reflection and empowerment can help us reignite the flames of our inner brilliance. Putting it all together, Fool's Gnosis Tarot holds the space for people who want to embrace the transformative quest towards self-discovery, illumination, and absolute potential. As an added bonus, Fool's Gnosis represents my initials. As you all know, in my intro spiel, which is played in the first 30 seconds of every episode, I introduce myself. So my name is Fiona Gertiza, or Chief, and my initials are FG. And now, all of that is out of the way, I'd want to talk about the tagline of Fool's Gnosis Tarot, which is embracing the world inside you. I like this tagline because it beautifully ties everything together like a metaphorical cherry on top. If you still remember what I was talking about earlier with the Fool, there's something called the Fool's Journey in tarot that describes the story contained within all 22 major arcana cards. And to put it simply, this story symbolizes the journey of the Fool, or the protagonist, as he travels through life. So each card in the major arcana, which is made up of 22 cards, represents a stage or a coming of age chapter in that journey, and the different phases or trials that the Fool encounters along the way. Now, this journey culminates with card 21, which is called the World. And I think this is such a beautiful articulation of how the Fool re-enters the world with a newfound sense of purpose, discovery, and maturity. Because we don't need to embark on a journey to rediscover the potential that lies within us. It's always been there. You know, it's been there all along. We've just been too blind to see it. Within each of us lies the power to shape our own destinies. All right, thanks for tuning in to the Fool's Gnosis podcast. If you like this content, please hit the like and subscribe button, and follow my page on Facebook and Instagram, which you'll find in the links below. The best way for you to support me is to book a reading with me. After all, I would love to get up close and personal with each one of you. I hope to catch you in my DMs, and see you next time.